plans that will direct future development rather than planning the city case by case, project by project.
It's going to make Hollywood a much more livable, much more walkable community.
And of course, a more shoppable one as well. City leaders expect the new plan will bring in more business and investments, and therefore more jobs for Tinseltown residents. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
Councilmember Tom LaBonge recently hosted a birthday celebration at Griffith Park, complete with a cake. The honoree? The park itself. Andrew Tarr has more.
On the steps of Griffith Observatory, Councilmember Tom LaBonge, along with representatives of the Department of Recreation and Parks and the Observatory, marked the special occasion.
115 years ago, the city of Los Angeles received its greatest gift. And the greatest gift is the 3,000 plus acres that Jenkins Griffith gave to the city of Los Angeles.
Today, the park has grown to over 4,000 acres and is one of the largest urban parks in the nation. It's home to many of the city's most popular attractions, including the Los Angeles Zoo, all types of athletic fields, and of course, the iconic Griffith Observatory, another gift from Colonel Griffith.
Griffith Park, since its birth, has traveled 67 billion miles through space and is still the center of the Los Angeles universe. I'm also pleased to acknowledge the Griffith Observatory, which celebrated its 75th anniversary last year, has completed 5 full years of public operation since it reopened, another occasion for celebrating today. And in the past 5 years, 4,091,881 visitors have entered the observatory. 1,838,093 people have attended a show in the Samuel Ocean Planetarium.
In total, over 10 million people visit the park every year. Councilmember LaBonge took a moment to thank members of the observatory's maintenance staff for their part in keeping Griffith's gift looking its best. From Griffith Park, I'm Andrew Tarr for LA This Week.
According to Councilmember LaBonge, the City Council took 2 years to consider accepting donation of the park. Some at the time considered it too far out of town. Councilmember Tom LaBonge returned to the Griffith Observatory just a few days later for another special occasion, to mark the winter solstice with Dr. Kruk and hundreds of Angelenos.
One and only Dr. Edward C. Kruk.
Councilmember LaBonge once again joined Dr. Kruk and hundreds of Angelenos to mark the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year when fall ends and winter begins. Why? Dr. Kruk explains.
At local noon, we had the lowest position of the sun across the sky during the course of the year, marking on the Gottlieb Transit Corridor. And now tonight, the southernmost point of sunset will be occurring on the Griffith Observatory winter solstice sunset line. This all happens because the Earth's axis is tilted in space and the Earth moves around the sun, and now the tilt is pointing at its greatest angle away from the sun.
From the edge of winter in the heart of Griffith Park, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week. The investigation into a multiple shooting spree in Hollywood last month that left 2 dead is still ongoing. But 6 officers, including 3 from the LAPD, have been singled out for their quick actions and bravery in helping to save lives. Anna Marcos has more.
These are the LAPD heroes of the hour. The 3 officers who went face-to-face with a gunman in a chaotic and deadly shooting at Sunset and Vine in Hollywood in early December. Police say suspect Tyler Bream was yelling and running up and down the street, pointing his gun into cars and shooting at point-blank range. When it was over, Bream lay dead, killed by police. Several victims were injured. One of them, music executive John Atterbury, did not make it.
Our condolences to the John Atterbury family. We obviously tried our hardest to save him, and unfortunately we weren't able to do so.
Detective Craig Marquez showed his softer side in talking about the victim, but his performance at the shooting showed only the toughest courage. He and partner Trevon Davis were doing a routine investigation in the area when the shooting erupted. Another officer who was off duty, Kevin Cotter, came to help.
To see somebody like Kevin Cotter, who I've known for 14 years, right there next to me and in my greatest moment of need, and hopefully he can say the same thing in his greatest moment of need. We were both there for each other.
It's heroism when you and your partner are getting ready to go do a follow-up investigation. You're in plain clothes, you don't have on any body armor, or you have to confront an armed gunman who has already taken a human life.
3 Business Improvement District officers also got commended for their help during the shooting.
The BID officers acted with disregard for their own safety and helped divert pedestrians and traffic away from the shooting scene.
Had it not been for the quick actions of 3 LAPD and 3 BID officers, city leaders say, the death toll in the wake of this shooting rampage could have been much higher. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
All told, Police Chief Charlie Beck says LAPD officers had to use their firearms in almost 60 incidents last year. After 3 years, LA's iconic First Street Bridge has reopened after a bridge widening project, making room for the Metro Gold Line extension. Andrew Tarr has more.
Originally built in 1929, the First Street Bridge is the second oldest bridge crossing the Los Angeles River. The $46.2 million project widened the bridge by 26 feet, but preserved the bridge's key architectural features.
This is a long time coming, but it is not only an improvement for the neighborhoods on both sides of the bridge, but it's an improvement for all of Los Angeles, because this gold line, the rail line that you see here, is connecting people from neighborhoods throughout the city of Los Angeles and the region, and we're very, very excited.
We're doing more than just opening a bridge to support traffic flow. We're paying tribute to the past, and I'm really thrilled to be here today with all of you to return this bridge to its rightful owners, the people of Los Angeles.
The project was led by the Department of Public Works. Its Bureau of Engineering restored, rebuilt, and, when necessary, replicated historical elements of the structure while meeting contemporary requirements.
I'm proud to represent the Department of Public Works and the workers responsible for building for the quality of life projects such as this amazing bridge. 1, 2, and 3.
You ready?
Yay! From the First Street Bridge near downtown Los Angeles, I'm Andrew Tarr for LA This Week.
More than 30 former gang members have taken a major step toward bettering themselves and their communities. Anita Bennett reports the group graduated from the city's Gang Intervention Academy.
It's been a long road and a long time coming, to see something like this happen. I just want to thank all the visionaries that put this together and giving us the opportunity to do something different with our lives.
For James Dunn, this event is a major milestone. He and 32 other former gang members just graduated from LA's Violence Intervention Training Academy, or La Vida as it's popularly known.
It all comes from the heart. Of course, the academy teaches us, but remember, it always comes from the heart. Got to give back.
The academy teaches ex-gangsters to become intervention workers. As these slides show, they undergo 140 hours of classes, including crisis management, police procedures, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Back at the commencement, LA Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa honored the graduates for a job well done.
But I wanted to come by to acknowledge your work, to acknowledge how important it is for all of us to collaborate and to cooperate and to focus on the violence.
The academy was launched by the city's Gang Reduction and Youth Development Department 2 years ago, and it's designed to help keep the peace in neighborhoods that have been hardest hit by gang violence. I'm Anita Bennett for LA This Week.
The academy is the first in the country to help ex-gangsters become intervention workers. City leaders and environmental advocates take a stand against plastic bags in Los Angeles.
This is the embodiment of how we live today. This is who we are in Los Angeles right now.
And this is just a small sample of the amount of plastic bags that are hurting the environment. City leaders are looking at 2 options: a ban on all single-use paper and plastic shopping bags, or prohibiting plastic bags while allowing stores to sell paper ones for a small fee. According to officials, in Los Angeles, 2 billion plastic bags are used every year, and 1.9 billion of them never get recycled.
They clog up our landfills, They clog up our storm drains. They wind up in our streets.
In addition to being a waste of resources and generating a large amount of litter, officials say plastic bags are the worst marine pollutants and can jeopardize marine life.
When the fish and all the animals in the ocean start to eat them, it becomes part of their food chain and it starts to poison them. We eat fish in the ocean, it starts to poison us.
Simply put, it costs too much to produce and clean up.
Takes almost 4 times as much energy to manufacture a plastic bag than it does to manufacture a paper bag.
Advocates have been working on implementing this ban for the past 4 years. City council members hope to have a measure passed before the end of March 2012. In the meantime, Angelenos are encouraged to use reusable bags as much as possible. A new theater in North Hollywood, protecting against content theft, the end of dirty trucks, and a new way to look at murals. All this on City Beat. NoHo 7 movie theater opened recently in the North Hollywood Arts District, crowning a major achievement of the city's Community Redevelopment Agency. CRA LA has been helping develop the area for over a decade. The theater is part of NoHo Commons, a 3-phase mixed-use development that has fueled the growth of the North Hollywood Arts and Entertainment District. Councilmember Richard Alarcon introduced a resolution in City Council recently calling for support of federal legislation that seeks to protect more than 2.2 million American jobs and 95,000 small businesses in the film and television industry from threats due to content theft. Alarcon's resolution would allow city representatives to advocate for passage of the federal legislation, which provides additional tools to limit illegal distribution of content. Technology advances have expanded the threat from pirated DVDs to illegal downloads, streaming, and other forms of distribution. New Year's Day marked the end of dirty trucks for the Port of Los Angeles Clean Truck Program. From now on, 100% of all containers in and out of the port will be hauled by trucks meeting the strictest clean air and safety standards of any major port in the world. As a result of the program, over 1,400 trucks out of the 11,772 truck fleet were retired as of January 1st. The Clean Truck Program is part of the 2006 Clean Air Action Plan, which seeks to cut pollution 45% from all port-related sources. Councilman Ed Reyes is asking for public participation and input on the city's mural ordinance draft. At issue is a 2002 ordinance approved by the City Council that amended regulations governing prohibited signs to include super graphic signs, inflatable devices, and mural signs. The City Council is crafting an ordinance consistent with the First Amendment that permits fine arts murals on private property and will help restore Los Angeles as the mural capital of the world. For more information and updates, visit LA City Code Studies on Facebook. Don't put away your decorations just yet. Anita Bennett has just a few more holiday memories.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
Los Angeles City Council President Eric Garcetti teamed up with the volunteer band Pay It Forward to bring a little holiday cheer to a nursing home in Silver Lake. The seniors at Garden Crest Rehabilitation Center danced and had a foot-tapping good time as they enjoyed the sounds of the season. Magic Johnson played Santa Claus in South LA. The former NBA star hosted the annual Angel City Christmas Party for needy children. Magic, along with his famous friends, actor Michael Clark Duncan and reality TV star Omarosa, plus Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, gave away lots of cool toys.
What do you think about your bike? It is good.
City Councilman Herb Wesson helped give away brand new bikes, frozen turkeys, and other holiday goodies at a winter wonderland in Harvard Heights. Volunteers also handed out clothes and other toys to excited kids. The LAPD rolled in to make sure young patients at Children's Hospital LA had a very Merry Christmas. Armed with dozens of toys, officers from the Central Traffic Division made special deliveries to the hospital's bone marrow transplant unit. Their mission to bring a little good cheer to sick kids through the Cops for Tots program. I'm Anita Bennett for LA This Week.
And in this week's Things to Do, the Chicano art movement, a feast in Little Tokyo, and living the modern way.
Mapping another LA, the Chicano art movement looks at the role of Chicano artists in the 1960s and 70s in a collective reimagining of the urban landscape through visual arts and architecture. Now through February 27th at the Fowler Museum on the North Campus of UCLA. For more information, visit the website at fowler.ucla.edu. On January 7th at 10 a.m., take in the Gray's Little Tokyo Walk, a food-centric exploration of the hidden corners of Little Tokyo in downtown Los Angeles. Sample local Asian food from lotus root to pounded rice while learning the history of the neighborhood. Presented by the Japanese American National Museum in downtown LA, 100 North Central Avenue. For more information, call the museum at 213-625-0414. From now until March 25th at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. California Design, 1930 to 1965. Living the Modern Way looks at California mid-century modern design. Through furniture, ceramics, metalwork, textiles, and graphic design, explore how California culture shaped the post-war era. LACMA is located at 5905 Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. For more information, check out www.lacma.org. Remember, you can find links for these and other events on LA This Week's Facebook page. I'm Andrew Tarr, the City Guy, and that's a look at some upcoming Things to Do.
That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rasha Goel. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org and check out our Facebook page for more on some of the stories and people we've covered. And before we go today, we'd like to take a moment to congratulate our regular host, Ellen Chang, and her husband, Mitch, on the birth of their daughter, Penelope. We'll see you back here again next week for more of LA This Week.
Did you know that more than 80% of false alarms are related to preventable user errors, such as open windows or pets? Any motion can trigger an alarm. Thousands of police patrol hours are wasted investigating alarm reports that turn out to be false alarms. That's crime-fighting time lost. Make sure your alarm is working properly.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you. Can we have some quiet, please? Shh. Good morning. I want to welcome you to the council meeting today. It's January 4th, Wednesday. The Los Angeles City Council meets 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. I'm Herb Wesson, and I'm the president of the Los Angeles City Council. First order of business.
Mr. President, we could call the roll at this period of time. In doing so, the roll is as follows: Alarcon, Cardenas, Englander, Garcetti, Weezer, Koretz, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Zine, Wesson, 12 members present, and a quorum, Mr. President.
Great. Next.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Labange moves, Mr. Reyes seconds. Next.
Mr. President, that would bring us to commendatory resolutions for approval.
Okay. Councilmember Weezer moves, Councilmember Alarcon seconds. At this point in time, I think maybe we can run through the agenda. And so if you would start off with the first series of items.
Mr. President, before doing so, there are requests from members to continue items 7 and 10 to January 11, 2012, and item 23 to January 17.
Could you give me those items again?
Mr. President, that's item 7 to January 11th.
Next.
Item 10 to January 11th.
All right.
And item 23 to January 17th.
Okay, without objection. Those items are continued.
Very good. Item
number 6.
We're not there yet, Mr. Zine.
Items 1 through 5 are items noticed for a public hearing.
Any cards?
Yes, sir. We have a card on item 1.
Okay, we'll hold that. Specials members? Well, since I don't see any specials, we'll open and close the public hearing on the remaining balance. So at this point in time, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Mr. President, items 6 through 12 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, member specials. 6 through 12. Mr. Zine?
Number 6. I'd like to continue that to the 27th of this month, please.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Members, any specials? Okay, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, items 13 through 23 are items for which public hearings have been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, then without objection, those items are now before us. Any cards on any of those items?
Yes, sir. We have cards on items 13, 17, 19, 20, and 21.
Specials members? No specials, so this open and close the public hearing on the remaining balance. I think it's time for us to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Mr. President, on the continuation agenda, item 24 is an item for which a public hearing has been held.
Okay, would any member, Mr. Englander, would like to call that item special?
Very good. We'll hold that matter on the desk then. Mr. President, that takes council back to items called special or public comment on items not on council's agenda.
You know, at this time, I'm going to call Mr. Reyes. Mr. Reyes, just like on Star Trek, it's your time to take over the comm.
Item 10 was approved.
approving Barbara Yaroslavsky.
Okay, for public comment, Mr. Reyes, don't go anywhere. What I'm going to do, I'm going to ask for Ms. Barbara Yaroslavsky to come forward to the podium. The item that you were going to speak on has been continued because the chair of the committee is not here, but you can speak on it during general public comment, which is now.
Oh, thank you, sir.
So
Mr.
please,
President, thank you.
I wanted to accommodate you.
Thank you, members. I'm Barbara Yaroslavsky, Vice President of the City's Commission on Community and Family Services. I'm here today to speak in support of the Community Redevelopment Agency's repayment of the outstanding $2 million loan of federal CDBG dollars to the Community Development Department. Last March, you, the City Council, directed the CRA to repay the $10.5 million, and to date there remains an outstanding payment of $2 million. Despite the challenges facing CRA, they should make good on their obligation and act in accordance with this Council's directive. In our recent policy recommendations for the 38th Program Year Consolidated Plan for Budget, the Commission identified the importance of repayment of all CDBG loans in full and on time. CDBG dollars are meant to assist our very low and low-income communities. The loan repayments are for program and income that go back into the CDBG budget for allocation to other projects and programs. These dollars are especially critical to this economic environment where Congress is slashing domestic programs such as the CDBG program, while the needs continue to grow. Thank you for the opportunity for the Commission on the Community and Family Services to be heard, and we look forward to our continued working with this Council and with the Mayor. Enjoy your day.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for those comments. Our next speaker for public comment, we have John Walsh, Arnold Sachs, and Scott Smith. Like to come on up, please.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Google us at Walsh Confidential. Ms. Yaroslavsky ran for city council. Who remembers then? Who remembers way back then? I opposed her. We did have yesterday the victory press conference with the arrest of the mad Hollywood arsonist. And you were out in the cold. The whole conference was controlled by Baca. Of course, Tom LaBonge and the mayor showed up. They were treated like what we used to call poor relatives. And we did an excellent job. And I'm telling you right now, they keep calling the Hollywood division the Keystone Cops. That's what the sheriffs say, not me. And if you're smart, Mr. Mayor, you'll make sure we have a new captain in Hollywood division because it's out of control in Hollywood. And now the most important issue is what you've forgotten about the mad Hollywood arsonist. There was a reward, $40,000. Who gets the $40,000? Well, that's simple. It's the U.S. Marshals and the other security personnel at the court. When the mad Hollywood bomber went berserk at federal court, they saw who he was and they told the sheriffs. They deserve $40,000 and they deserve a moment in their sun. And you know why? Everyone's forgotten? Because they're minorities. Because only the white people get to bask in reflected glory of the mad Hollywood bomber. Arsonist. I'm telling you right now, who gets the $40,000? And lastly, Mr. Parks, I asked you where he was. You said he was just absent. And then I went to the media, read it in City Maven. I'm sorry to say that he's had out of a serious operation. And you didn't say a damn word about him. Thank God for Bernard Parks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Labange.
For the council's information, no reward request was formally introduced as a recommendation of the police department because the suspect was arrested. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. City Attorney, if a law enforcement agent of any agency tips another agency, they're not eligible for reward. That's their job.
That is my understanding.
And we salute them, and at some time in the future
If it's
we will.
part of their duties, they cannot accept the reward.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Arnold Sachs, and then following him will be Scott Smith. Come on up, Mr. Smith. We appreciate it very much. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Arnold Sachs. You know, yesterday's meeting was a microcosm of some of the things that occur here on a daily basis. You had the little item with the people coming from wherever about a lien on their property. And I believe the council president mentioned that they didn't have to speak about it because it had already been taken care of. As a matter of fact, it had been taken care of a week ago. So my question would be, if it had been taken care of a week ago, why was it on the agenda? Doing stuff that you already know the answer to. The other part of yesterday's agenda that was pretty fascinating was the interaction between the City Council and the LAUSD regarding sidewalks. Because when LAUSD went to buy a park in Honest Jan Perry's district, fortunately for the people who live in that district, they are park rich. Because LAUSD didn't know that the DWP had transferred the property to the city's Park and Recreation Department. So somebody built the park that the public can't use. How did that happen? Oh, it's a transfer. But it wasn't agendized, or maybe it was agendized and maybe nobody was in a meeting. We don't know. Maybe we can get an audit on that from the Audit and Efficiency Committee. Nah, we got to do the green card, the gold card. We already know that those tickets have been waived. But let's not do an audit on finding out how the DWP could transfer property to a city agency and nobody knew what the hell was going on. Yesterday, by the way, in Monday's newspaper, on Tuesday's newspaper, laws that benefit California new laws. There's one in here that says lying politicians. Holy cow. Except it only deals with them lying about enhancing their military resume. Can you imagine lying politicians? There'd be nobody left in California.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Next speaker, Scott Smith, Herbert Thompson, then Matt Dowd. Good morning, sir.
Hi. The Union of Medical Marijuana Patients would like to point out two unforeseen consequences of imposing a total ban on medical marijuana dispensaries. The first is that you can pick a number. We think there are 250,000 medical marijuana users based on the fact that there are 350 dispensaries. Some say 100,000 in Los Angeles. All those patients are entitled to 6 plants, which they will take home to every neighborhood where there are children. Pot has a very strong odor. The neighbors will know those people are growing it. This will attract robberies. And if you think you had a crime problem with the dispensaries, this will magnify it in every neighborhood. However, for those who aren't familiar with it, marijuana is actually very difficult to grow in Los Angeles. So many of those patients are going to go back to the black market. That will make the street gangs very happy. So we'd like to remind you that before you do a drastic solution, you go back and read Police Chief Beck's testimony from 3 years ago, where he did a study that showed that the dispensaries are not magnets for crime. And we have proposed third-party verification as a way for the city to have regulation that will survive the PAC decision. And we've been talking to the staff of some of your offices, and we'd appreciate it if you would take a look at our proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a lot of conversations going on outside. It's hard to hear the public comments. Can you please lower the volume of the sidebar conversations? Appreciate that. Herbert Thompson, Matt Dowd.
Yes, thank you, Matt Dowd. I've got 2 live First Amendment cases against the City of Los Angeles in the United States District Court. So I've got a right to be here to do this. As long as that flag is hanging there, I'm going to invoke my full First Amendment, and that means my content is protected. You know, I'll even go into the Ted Hayes manner, so it's all very lovely. But I want to comment on Eric Garcetti's performance as president. You know, I thought it was gay, and let me explain what I mean by that, because that's an expression people understand out there on Channel 35. He's trying to shield elected government officials from the First Amendment right that this podium gives. And that First Amendment right's been ruled on by the Ninth Circuit, that a disruption is exactly that, a disruption. So I'm going to prove that you can say anything you want as long as it's not federally prohibited, like obscenity. And I will say it, because it's 2012. It's not a Happy New Year. I brought 12 performers down here. This is not a Shea Butter Michael Hunt case. That's out of my domain now. I don't even care about that. For 12 performers, you all stand up here and talk about the arts yesterday. Yeah, I tuned in, but I don't come because that was Sheeple Day. All the, the would-be people who just don't have a real issue that counts like I do. See, that's why I got respect for Jan Perry, because she actually took it and said, no, I got it right, and she was right. But I just don't believe it's 2012 and you still want to fuck.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Mark F. Masri. Thank you very much.
Good morning, council members, President Pro Tem. Hopefully I can get all of your attention on this. I'll try to be brief. Yesterday, the council's agenda read the following: prepare and present request the city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance to transfer authority for conducting neighborhood council elections from the city clerk to Dunn on a temporary basis for the 2012 neighborhood council election cycle. Prepare and present are quite different from resolve and adopt. However, that's exactly what this council did. Had those words been used, the public would have been given its notice to make its opinions heard, ones that I believe may have helped guided your decision. That opportunity was lost. Yesterday's agenda debate indicated that the actual decision would have been made at another time. It was not, so I am here today. I do not have enough time to digress on any of the following points. However, it is my sincere hope someone on this council looks at this more closely to get a more informed view and to make a more informed decision. I offer these points. 1, there's reasons why the election oversight was transferred to the city clerk from Dunn 4 years ago. I think the council would be well behooved to look at those more closely. 2, in 2010, my council had the highest poll turnout in the city of Los Angeles. It took us 6 months of planning to accomplish that, and we still weren't able to do all that we wanted to. It takes a long time to pull these off with limited budgets. 3, canceling the elections was preposterous. Postponing them would be prudent, given what I just told you of what it takes to actually execute one of these elections. Ask what % of staff at Dunn is actually served on a neighborhood council. Have they gained the experience in the trenches, so to speak? I think you'll find that percentage to be extraordinarily low.
Thank you very much. Our next 2 speakers will be from the Valley, Herbert Thompson and Rick Nightingale. Mr. Thompson.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm here to invite the council and everybody from San Fernando Valley out to our first victims' rights campaign that we're having here at the Marvin Brody building, building 1B, today at 5:30. And also I would like to thank Mr. Dennis Zine for coming out on the 18th and joining us with our Christmas celebration. It was a pleasure to see a councilman come out and actually be amongst the public. And I'm asking anyone from Richard Alicon's office, Dennis Zine's office, and anyone that's in the San Fernando Valley, if they can please send a representative from their office to this outreach meeting. It's going to be very educational. I'm working with the Captain Snell from the from Van Nuys Police Department on this project to bring more awareness about victimization and what our program has to offer. I would like someone from the City Council, if they can please contact me regarding this issue and helping us with our Stop the Violence campaign at HerbertThompson69yahoo.com. I would really appreciate it. And once again, thank y'all, and hope to see y'all tonight at the Victims' Rights Rally tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Mr. Rick Nightingale.
Yeah, Rick Nightingale. You know, it was really upsetting yesterday what was said there. All right, people didn't agree what I had to say regarding teaching about the lesbians and gays and so forth in the schools. But that's my right to say that. It's the same thing that if you go to a party, we'll say, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, because it's an argumentative situation. Now you can't talk about what's being taught in the schools regarding this, because then you're labeled as a bigot and so forth. That's the same thing as people didn't believe about the Holocaust. Don't talk about that either. What is this place coming to that I can't talk about what I want to talk about? And somebody gets up and calls me a bigot and so forth. As far as I'm concerned, you say that in front of my face, it's like fighting words. If you don't like it, keep your mouth shut. I have the right to say it. If you don't like it, walk away. I'm 67 years old. I went to Catholic school. Things were taught to me. Respect my brother and sister and so forth. But I don't have to put up with that stuff and somebody getting on the air and talk to me about a bigot and so forth. You want to step outside and go with me, that's fine. Because that's my right. What gives you the right to say that on the air and so forth? You got your beliefs. Look at what you're doing to this city. As a sanctuary city that we voted against it. Look what happened with 187. The people voted, oh, we're all bigots and so forth because we are going against another race or whatever. That is our privilege. That's what we vote for. That's what America's about. And what gives you the right to come up and say, you can't do that on TV? If you want to talk to somebody on the side, that's fine. You have a responsibility to show an example, and you aren't showing it at all regarding...
Thank you, Mr. Nightingale. Thank you very much for your comments. Okay. Councilman Ryan.
The individual that spoke on the Victims' Rights Rally, if he's still in Van Nuys, if we can get that information where it is. He said 5:30. I didn't get the location on the Victims' Rights Rally. If he's still in Van Nuys Chambers, if he could please... There he is. Sir, if you could give us the location of tonight's rally?
We're at 6262 Van Nuys Boulevard, on corner of Sylvan, at the Marvin Brothers Building, 1B.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Okay, so that concludes public comment. Mr. Clerk, what's before us?
Mr. President, that takes us to item number 1 called Special for Cards.
Okay. So, item number 1, we have John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at Hollywood Highlands, HIGHLANDS.org. Also go to Mickey Jackson, our Facebook, or Google Hollywood Confidential. Or I should say Google Walsh Confidential. In fact, this is a very important item. Item 1, continue consideration of hearing protests. Adopt the ordinance levying the assignments and ordering the maintenance of the above lighting district. We're 100% in favor of this, and I hope what I'm about to do will not cause me to be arrested, but I'm going to do it anyway. For the Lord, I'm going to Tebow right now. I am praying.
Mr. Reyes, it doesn't appear he's talking about the Kiowa and Granville Avenues number 1 lighting district.
Okay. Okay, we'll open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Thank you. Next item.
Mr. President, that brings us to item 13 called Special for Cards.
Item 13, we have 2 cards. On 13, we have Mr. John Walsh and then Matt Dowd. Mr. Walsh on item 13.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Year older than Rick Nightingale. We're going to have a big fight out there. First of all, this is an important issue. This concerns weed and brush abatement. You're doing a terrible job on weed and brush abatement. I don't live in the hills, so my property, you were in many ways, this is called, when you don't do the weed and brush abatement that you're supposed to do, it's sort of like politically correct arson. In other words, it starts fires, and of course Hollywood is, and LA is the arson capital of the world. I would ask that the removal of weeds or rubbish, an ordinance establishing it, public nuisance, you should triple the amount of money that you're putting in there. And I'd like to again finish by saying HollywoodHighlands.org and a brief Tebowing.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Matt Dowd.
All right, yes, I like to do that. Weed abatement, brush, these are all things. First of all, how about take down the fencing before we put any money into any of these things? Take down the fencing around the park and it looks like a graveyard right out here. And that's my park. That's all I've got in America. So that's the first thing. Take it down, and if anybody comes and camps there, just remove them. I mean, it's easy. No, I want that done first before.
The issues on weed abatement.
That's why I'm saying it's a comment relative to the removal of weeds, rubbish, refuse, and dirt upon certain streets, sidewalks, parkways, in front of certain private properties in the city of Los Angeles, and are a public nuisance. And I want that done. But it costs money, and we don't have any, so I'd rather just see City Hall look nice, too, first, because I like to come here. It's the one bright spot around here.
Thank you very much. Open the row. Close the row. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you. Next item.
Mr. President, that brings us to item number 17 called Special for Cards.
We do have 2 cards on this item. We have John Walsh and Matt Dowd.
This is a DWP issue. Now watch. When I praise them, nobody stops me. DWP has done an excellent job. During the windstorms, Southern California Edison service was out for days and days because they cut their maintenance. The top person in Pasadena and the top person here makes about $250,000 a year. Of DWP. The top person at Southern California Edison makes how much? $1.7 million. They let their entire system fall apart. They didn't trim the trees. Then the wind blew the trees down. Notice no one is stopping me, but I'm way off subject because I'm praising you. Once I praise you, I can say anything I want for 2 minutes. HollywoodHighlands.org. And I'd like to know, you'll stop me for this, the name of the informer.
He's not talking about this matter.
Thank you very much, sir. Next speaker, Matt Dowd.
Okay, yes, this one caught my eye because it says First Amendment right near the top, but it's not about the First Amendment. It's about additional capacity transmission for the city of Los Angeles, for the increased density. Yes, of course. And here's the part that's the problem. The CEQA guidelines, which states in part there is no possibility that the activity in question may have a significant effect on the environment. No possibility. Power transmission. It's interesting. So I wouldn't believe it for a second. And I wouldn't believe Eric Garcetti for a second either, Mr. Nightingale. So don't even trip. He's got the right to, if you do, and so do I.
Thank you much. Next item, open the row. Close the row. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item, please.
Mr. President, that brings us to item number 19, called Special for Cards.
Okay. Two speakers on this item, John Walsh and Matt Dowd.
John Walsh, over 1 million successful server requests last year at HollywoodHighlands.org. This is REAP. This, incidentally, again, is a very, very good project. The city has been very strong about evil landlords. Notice how everyone, I've mentioned a single case, but they're quiet when I praise them. They just go down my throat when I ask questions. HollywoodHighlands.org. I'm going home, and everybody else, turn off the TV set. There's nothing's going to happen after Matt comes up. And I just want to know, who was the tipster? Give me the name.
Mr. President,
of the
he's not talking about this REAP matter.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Our next speaker, Matt Dowd.
Yes. Well, I hear this FBI investigations into the city of Los Angeles and all kind of problems, and here's why I don't trust this program. And it's I'm going to simplify it. Like when Dennis Zine was discussing the most hideous corruption that the body had ever seen, everybody's leaving the room one by one. To do some menorah candle lighting thing, when you just should have adjourned the item, like Mr. Koretz suggested, and then just come back and have full respect. But when there's no respect just for that hackler corruption, it's like that guy yesterday, too, at the $4 million or $4 billion with Mitch Englander. I mean, the guy was just, he brushed over that, oh my goodness, so quickly.
Okay, open the row. Close the row. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Thank you. Next item.
Mr. President, that brings us to item 20, called Special for Cards.
Okay, we do have two cards on that, Arnold Sachs and Matt Dowd.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. This is pretty interesting because I've got some documentation I actually got from Councilman LaBonge's office. City of Los Angeles Interdepartmental Correspondence, LA for Kids Steering Committee meeting, October 27, 2011. Background. The passage of Proposition K in 1996 created a citywide assessment district which generates $25 million each year in funds for the acquisition, improvement, construction, and maintenance of city parks. Yet this 3-year cycle is making $26 million available for the request for proposals. Well, if the assessment generates $25 million a year, in 3 years, that's $75 million. But you're only making $26 million available over the 3-year period. So let me see, 26 from 75, that's $49 million. Where'd that money go? And in your item on the agenda, it mentions that city project that receive funding through the RFP may result in increased operational and maintenance costs that would be addressed through the city's budget process and projects come online. But in the background information, it says this Prop K money would be used for improvement, construction, and maintenance of city parks. So why is city budget going to be used when you're saying Prop K funds will be used for maintenance? I don't know. Maybe we'll get an answer. You know, it is on the agenda. And the Brown Act refers to items not on the agenda that you can't discuss. So maybe this time we can get an answer, or somebody might give an answer on why this is so, because again, it is on the under the Brown Act. Items on the agenda can and should be discussed when the public has questions. It seems that whenever the public has a question, whether it's on or off the agenda, nobody has an answer.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Matt Dowd.
I'll waive this one.
Did he waive? He waived.
Okay. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13
Next
13
item.
ayes.
Thank you, Matt. Next item, please.
That brings us to item 21, called Special for Cards.
Okay, we have Arnold Sachs and Matt Dowd. Mr. Sachs, are you going to come up? Arnold Sachs and Matt Dowd, come on up, please.
Yes, thank you. Again, good morning. Arnold Sachs. Very quickly on this item, I held this for two reasons, A and B. Let's see. I had it written down here. This money that's going to be generated, this is 21, right? States that the $300,000 is going to go to the Power Revenue Fund. And that's, I believe, the fund that the controller mentioned when the city was going bankrupt, that the DWP had, about $97 million when they couldn't afford to make the transfer a couple of years ago. Remember, way back when the city was in dire straits, not on the easy street they have now. And by the way, it's great to know that you deferred all those hourly payments to the police, how much else you owe to as far as balancing the budget. Because in item number 22, it states that the same transmission service will generate $5,600,000, but that's just going to the Los Angeles Department of Power and Water and Power. So the question is why in item number 21, the Power Revenue Fund was going to get a measly $300,000, yet the same transmission service in item 22 is going to go to the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power and not necessarily to the Power Revenue Fund. Again, I know there'll be a quick answer because, hey, you're on it. Get off.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Matt Dowd, next speaker.
Yes, well, it's going to be a fun 2012. I can see that. Rolling into this nice contract with Motorola. Got Google on board, LAPD, Motorola's, Google's, Androids. It's all going to be good. But I hope you can keep your rules of decorum, because here's what's going to happen. What if someone's phone goes off?
Mr. President, he's not talking about item 21.
Thank you.
Let me get back on the item. Motorola is a great company, and I'm so happy that the city of Los Angeles...
That is not on the item right now, sir. Please stay focused on the item before you.
It's a contract with Motorola.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item, please.
Mr. President, that brings us to item 24, called Special for Councilmember Englander.
Councilor Englander?
I'm coming. I'll cut through.
There he is. He's taking the scenic route.
All right, thank you. Can I ask GSD to just step to the table for a second? Council members, if you could, we had a discussion yesterday about neighborhood council elections, and I think we all just basically are trying to find the easiest path to make it simple to keep them alive. And the issue that Mr. Krikorian was so passionate about was trying to work to save them, and I applaud his efforts. It was really an issue of, I think that we all agree that we're just short on cash and trying to find the best solutions to make sure that we can run efficiently, and it's $1 million for that. Yet when we uncover things that were done outside of the scope of contracts that cost the cities...
Mr. England, if I may, I just want to make sure that the folks in the chambers are listening.
Yes.
Again, too many conversations.
Appreciate that.
Too much sidebar. Please take your conversation outside if it's not pertinent to the subject at hand. Thank you very much.
So in the audits committee and Mr. Zine's committee, we uncovered an audit that was done by the controller that found, in this example, and it wasn't anything that Motorola had done necessarily, but in this example, there was $4,500 in shipping, roughly, that the city was charged in freight in error, because we created a piggyback contract basically with the county. We have about 50 of these, 50 to 70 of these contracts with 500 different tentacles for procuring goods and or services in the city. And those are with the county and the state of California, the federal government, many other organizations. That allows us the economies of scale to secure these goods and services cheaper. At the end of the day, we're supposed to follow what is set forth in these contracts to not allow departments to add things that were not included or negotiated in the original procurement bid on the piggyback contract. In this case, for example, the county negotiated a contract with Motorola that said that they are not to charge us freight for shipping of products, and they did. And it was $4,500. It was caught in the audit, and they paid us back. What was also caught in the audit was $4 million in purchases that were over and above the original piggyback contract. And this is what came out in the audits committee, in Mr. Zine's committee. And with that, the $4 million, we were told that since it was caught in the audit, that we've gone through and we've changed now the procurement operations manual to not allow that to happen. We don't know if that's been updated. The language, and the reason I asked GSD to the table, in the procurement manual, I don't know if any council members have actually ever seen the procurement manual. And if there are any council members that have actually been delivered a copy of it, I'd love to know that. I've asked for copies of it. It's roughly 90 pages. It was just recently updated, and the language that was added to ensure we don't do these things anymore or add services was one sentence that's stuck in a section that basically says the city is otherwise bound by the items, products, terms, conditions, requirements, and specifications of the parent agency's contract. That's it, that one line, which can be interpreted so many different ways.
Mr. Eglender, the time did expire, but we don't have anyone else on the queue.
And there's nobody else in the queue. So if you give me one more second, we've brought this back to council 3 times and to committee twice.
Okay.
And we're looking at millions of dollars here.
Okay, so you want to
I'd like to ask GSD, what are we doing to ensure that we are no longer allowing services to be added to piggyback contracts, and what are the terms and conditions when we do allow, in those rare cases, services to be added that were not originally negotiated? And where is that in the manual, and how is it being spelled out and implemented across the departments to ensure we're not spending these tens of millions of dollars as we have been, which was outlined in the audit?
Thank you. I will have our Director of Supply Services, Ken Desowitz, to give you more details on that policy and procedures, how we're going to deal with that issue. Ken.
Thank you. In addition to the one sentence that was added to our procurement manual, and this is an internal manual that's used by our 20 procurement staff when they do their purchasing. It also says that procurement staff must prepare a summary of the parent agency's contract, independent of and not a supplier-prepared document, and submit it with the purchasing award approval cover sheet to management for review and approval. There are several levels of management review and approval, including the City Attorney's Office. And that was the major change that was added as a result of the Controller's audit.
Okay, with that, if I could, we'll go ahead and I'd ask we support the receive and file of this document, but I would ask for a second, if I could, on a verbal motion to bring the full procurement and piggyback and procurement operations manual to the audits committee for review. And so we can have those conversations in detail to ensure that these things.
Okay. There's a second.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll open the roll on this item. It's noted in file. Close the roll.
As amended, as amended.
Tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Okay. Now.
Mr. President, that was approved as amended.
Okay. Approved as amended. We do have a special. Mr. Clerk would like to walk us through that?
Very good. There is a special motion circulated by Mr. Labange, and the city attorney will speak to the findings. I might advise that it does require 2 votes, first on the findings and subsequent to that passing, then on the actual matter itself.
So, please.
Since the posting of today's agenda, approximately 50 fires were deliberately set in Los Angeles that damaged numerous structures. Immediate action is required to request the Department of Building and Safety to expedite the permitting process to repair the damaged structures. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Let's open the roll on the findings. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Okay, Mr. Labange, you have the floor.
Very much, members. Mr. Garcetti, Mr. Koretz, Mr. Krikorian, all of our areas were hit. Not all of the 50-plus fires were in the city. Some were in the West Hollywood area and other parts of the county. But in discussing this with Bud Overham, our general manager, and Ray Chan, the #1 man in the #2 position of building and safety, with our motion today, they'll be able to help in any way possible these people recover. And I just want to thank my colleagues from Mr. Krikorian, Mr. Koretz, and Mr. Garcetti, and your deputies, who were all there during this incident of the 4 days and the success that the Joint Task Force had. This is important for the rebuilding process. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured in this tragic 5 nights in L.A. Thank you.
Yes, we do have one card on this item. Mr. Arnold Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. You know, yesterday you had on your agenda 2 items where you requested surveys on how to make LA more business friendly. I suggest that this is a great opportunity because you have 50 or more permits that are going to be needed to be expedited. This is a great opportunity for the city, whatever department, to look at streamlining the necessary permits for getting things done in the city of LA, because again, you have 50 items or 50 or more projects that might be coming across the building and safety or building department, whatever agencies are involved. They're going to be having to hustle. So this would be a perfect opportunity, no survey necessary, to see what actually could work to streamline efforts in the city of LA and what could be changed if the council acts.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. See no one else on the queue. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tally the vote.
13 eyes.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, what's before us?
Mr. President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
Post and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Cardenas requested to be excused for today's meeting.
Excused.
Councilmember Perry requests to be excused from council on January 6th.
Excused.
Councilmember Parks requests to be excused from January 10th through January 31st.
Excused.
And Councilmember Labange requests to be excused on January 11th.
I don't know about that one. Oh, excused.
Mr. President, the desk is clear.
Okay, members, any announcements? Any announcements? Seeing none. Adjourning motions. Adjourning motions. Please stand.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Councilmember Cardenas, please.
Thank you. It's with great sadness I announce the passing of Eliseo Galarza. He passed away on December 24th, 2011 from prostate cancer. Eliseo Galarza was born on June 9, 1914, in El Ojo de Agua, Jalpa, Zacatecas, Mexico, to Mercedes Martinez and Pedro Galarza. At the age of 5, Eliseo became an orphan, left to be cared for by his godparents. Eliseo was raised to be a very humble and strong individual with a strong work ethic that would be passed on to his children. In the mid 1920s, Eliseo witnessed a beautiful young lady fall from a burro and helped her up. Some say it was love at first fall, but Eliseo went on to marry Consuelo Diaz for over 70 years, and they were blessed to raise 7 children: Javier, Mercedes, Leonia, Javier, Eliseo, Manuel, and Teresa. Eliseo was determined to provide his family for a better life. In the mid-1940s, he worked as a bracero in El Norte, here in the United States, during the World War II time, laboring in the fields of several western United States, including Utah, Montana, Colorado, Oregon, and California. Although difficult at times, his work as a farm worker inspired him to bring his entire family to Los Angeles, California. And in 1970, Eliseo and Consuelo purchased a house in the northeast San Fernando Valley in the community of Arleta. To this day, all of his children reside in the same area of the valley. Eliseo enjoyed the outdoors, planting and gardening were some of his favorite pastimes. He took a lot of pride in knowing that he planted over 10 fruit trees at his Arleta home, which many to this day still bear fruit. He will always be known for his sense of humor and out-of-the-world facial expressions that would always make everybody laugh. Eliseo passed away at his home on Christmas Eve at the age of 97, and all of his family were at his side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Next, any other adjourning motions? Councilor Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that you join me today in adjourning in the memory of Stanley Robertson, an icon and visionary leader who passed away last year at his home in Bel Air at the age of 85. The only child of working-class parents, Robertson was born in Los Angeles on November 20th, 1925, with the handicap of very limited vision. He worked as a post office janitor, a drugstore dishwasher, did menial work in a hospital lab, and felt that he gained insight and motivation to represent the voiceless in his community and give a legitimate voice to their stories and concerns. His passion came at a time when minorities were largely unrepresented behind the scenes and on the screen. After receiving a degree at LA City College in 1949, for 2 years Robertson worked as a general assignment reporter for the Los Angeles Sentinel. He rose to become the paper's managing editor and resigned to become an associate editor of Ebony magazine. His drive to learn as much as possible found him in his spare time devouring as many scripts as he could get his hands on. The decision he made to leave his post at Ebony magazine and go back to school in 1954 to study telecommunications at USC was significant to his future career. His knowledge of storytelling began during a stint at Music Clearance Department at NBC after being hired as a page for the network in 1957. The top brass at NBC recognized Robertson's talents when he was promoted into the executive ranks, first as a manager of film production operations in 1965, then as a director of motion pictures for television, and eventually as vice president of motion pictures for television in 1971. He later ascended to the position of Vice President of Film Production, where he was responsible for all programming produced on the network's primetime schedule. In 1984, he was brought to Columbia Pictures by Frank Pierce, the chairman of Motion Pictures, and was subsequently made Vice President of Production. He was the first black vice president of both a major TV network and a motion picture company. He worked tirelessly behind the scenes for over 50 years to make minority inclusion possible, innovating minority programs in the hope of integrating more African Americans and women into the mainstream of the filmmaking industry. His efforts resulted in the creation of the first creative access program at a major studio, in which the studio focused on developing minority writers and directors. He was intent on opening the doors for others and mentoring a new generation of diverse artists and executives. He started a new producers initiative as well as a management training program to develop new minority management personnel. Later, in an attempt to further mainstream minority images, Robertson launched his own production company, Gilchrist Incorporated, sealing a deal with Universal Studios as a contract writer, producer, and executive. It was at Universal that Robertson continued to create positive images of African Americans during an era when TV comedies were the only representation of blacks on TV. He's survived by his wife Ruby of 58 years, his daughter Jill Francesca, and his son Christopher John, and he will be sorely missed for a very positive impact on the film and television industry.
Thank you, Councilmember Koretz. Are there any more adjourning motions? Councilmember Labange.
Members, I ask we adjourn in memory of Van Carlson. Van Carlson was the loving husband of Mary Rodriguez, who some of you may know, my deputy for the Los Feliz, Silver Lake area. He had a 6-year battle with cancer. A loving man, a filmmaker, Emmy Award winner. Van is survived by his wife Mary, their children Max and Ruby, a great Los Feliz resident, a loving man. And the beauty of his ascension was his daughter was at home, and he was at home in hospice, and he waited and waited. His daughter came home, and after his daughter was able to see him, he went to heaven. So God bless Van Carlson.
Thank you, Councilmember Labange. Councilmember Perry.
I'd like to adjourn in memory of Giovanni John Matera, who was a beloved resident of San Pedro and active in Local 63. He was born in San Pedro on March 23, 1942, and he was nicknamed the Bear in his youth for his tenacity and determination on the gridiron. He worked for many years in the field of architecture until moving on and joining Local 63, where he was a clerk until his retirement in 2010. He was proud of his Italian heritage, and his loyalty to his family and friends was unsurpassed, as anyone who knew him would attest. He was an avid hunter and gardener who loved the outdoors and the waterfront. He thoroughly enjoyed his time working on the waterfront and considered his the best job in the world. He is survived by his parents and brother Vince, his son and daughter-in-law John Michael Matera and Shannon McIntyre, his daughter and son-in-law Michelle Matera and Sean Mills, and his grandsons Ford Michael and Wade Paul Matera. He will be sincerely missed by all who call San Pedro home.
Thank you, Councilmember Perry. Are there any more adjourning motions? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Have a great day.